My name is John and I am 60 years old. I've learned that age doesn't break you all at once. It arrives quietly, in the way your knees ache when you stand, in the way people start speaking around you instead of to you, and sometimes, in the way your own family decides your future without asking your heart. The night my daughter-in-law announced my last dinner at home, the candles on the table flickered like they were nervous to bear witness. The dining room was warm, filled with the smell of roasted chicken and garlic, my favorite. My late wife used to cook it this way when she wanted the house to feel like a celebration. I thought this dinner was one of those small attempts at togetherness. I was wrong. My son Mark sat across from me scrolling on his phone. His wife Linda smiled the tight smile of someone who believes politeness is a formality, not a feeling. Their two children laughed at something on a tablet. The house was loud with noise but strangely empty of care. Linda cleared her throat, tapped her fork against her glass, and said it casually, like she was announcing dessert. John, this is your last dinner here. From tomorrow, you'll be moving into a nursing home. It's better for everyone. The room went quiet. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that feels like your name has been erased from the family register. I waited for Mark to look up. To laugh it off. To say, "Mom, she's joking." He didn't. He kept staring at his phone as if avoiding my eyes could erase the words that had just been spoken. I smiled. Not because it didn't hurt, but because sometimes when you've lived long enough, you learn that silence can be louder than shouting. The house I built with my hands. This wasn't just any house. This was the home I built brick by brick after returning from years of hard labor. My wife and I saved every spare coin to buy this land. We planted the mango tree in the backyard the day Mark took his first steps. I remember holding him up so he could touch the tiny leaves. This will grow with you, I told him. Now that tree was tall, its shade covering half the yard. But somehow, I had become the one considered too old to stay. After dinner, Linda began talking logistics. How the nursing home had good facilities. How they needed space. How it was for my own good. For my own good. Those words are dangerous when spoken by people who don't plan to carry the consequences. I excused myself and walked to my room. The walls still held photographs, Mark at his graduation, my wife on our last anniversary, a faded picture of me holding my newborn son. I sat on the edge of the bed and felt something crack not in my bones but in my pride. I wasn't afraid of a nursing home. I was afraid of being forgotten. What they didn't know. There's something people assume about the elderly. That we're helpless. That we've lived our best years and now we're just waiting. What Linda and Mark didn't know was that I had quietly prepared for a future where I might have to stand alone. After my wife passed away, I felt the ground shift beneath me. Grief teaches you to prepare for storms you can't predict. I sold a small piece of land I'd inherited and invested in a modest rental property in another part of town. I never told Mark, not because I didn't trust him, but because I believed independence was a dignity no one should have to negotiate. That night, after everyone went to bed, I took out the old folder from my suitcase. Documents, deeds, bank statements, not weapons, just truths. I slept peacefully. The morning of packing. The next morning, Linda was already packing my clothes into a suitcase. She did it efficiently, like cleaning out a guest room. "You don't need all this," she said, holding up one of my old sweaters. "The nursing home provides everything. Everything except dignity." Mark stood at the door, hands in pockets. I looked at him, really looked at him. The boy who once cried when I went away for a week of work. The man who now couldn't find the courage to meet his father's eyes. "Son," I said gently, "do you think this is right?" He hesitated. "Dad, it's just, things are complicated." Complicated is what people say when they choose comfort over conscience. I nodded. "All right, I'll go, but first I need to stop somewhere." Linda frowned. "Where?" "Somewhere important," I replied. "A different door opens." Instead of heading to the nursing home, I asked Mark to drop me off at a small street across town. There stood a modest, sunlit house with a small garden out front. The jasmine flowers were in bloom. The place felt alive. "This is where I'll be staying," I said. Linda's mouth fell open. "What is this?" "My home," I replied calmly. "One of them at least." Mark stared at me. "Dad, you bought this." I invested in it years ago. I didn't want to be a burden. I wanted a place where I could wake up and still feel like myself. For the first time in a long while, Mark looked small, not young, just unsure. You were ready to send me away without knowing I had prepared a future for myself, I continued softly. I never asked to be placed where I would be managed instead of loved. Linda tried to regain control, but what about us, the house? I smiled. The house is yours. I built it for family. Just remember, family isn't measured by how much space someone takes, but by how much space you're willing to give them in your heart. The weight of realization. They left me at the door. I watched their car disappear down the street. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was peaceful. I unlocked the door to my new home and stepped inside. Sunlight spilled across the floor. It wasn't grand, but it was mine. I brewed tea and sat by the window, watching the world move. For the first time in months, my chest felt lighter. That evening, Mark called. "Dad, I'm sorry," he said, his voice cracked. "I didn't realize how much we were hurting you." "I know," I replied. "Sometimes people don't mean harm, they just forget that love needs action, not just intention." There was a pause. "Can we come by tomorrow?" "You're welcome," I said. "Just come as my son, not as someone managing my life." Moral of the story. Growing old is not a crime. Being dependent is not a weakness. And preparing for your own dignity is not an act of rebellion, it's an act of self-respect. The moral. Never decide an elderly person's future without their voice. And never mistake age for irrelevance. Because the people who built your world deserve more than a quiet corner of it when they grow old. They deserve a seat at the table with their names still spoken with respect.